And we'll get started. I do want to say at the top of the meeting that we are recording. So please keep in mind that to monitor what you are writing in the chat box, as this will be distributed for individuals beyond tonight. But thank you everyone for joining us. Can we advance the slide, please? Awesome. So hopefully everyone's in the correct space. This is our Q&A. I wanted to provide a brief welcome and introduction as to why we are here. For those that I am not familiar with, I am Brandy Ebanks Copes, and I serve as the Racial Disparity and Fairness Administrator for Harris County's Justice Administration Department. And on at the top of the screen, you see my beautiful colleagues. I'll let the two who have joined via video introduce themselves briefly.
Hi, I'm Karen Evans, and I am the Community Engagement Manager for the Justice Administration Department, and glad to have you here.
Hi, everyone. I am Laura Lucas. I am the Communications and Media Relations Manager for JAD, and also very welcome and glad to have you here.
Excellent. Tonight's presentation, we really wanted this to be informal, and just to provide some added context around what it is we're doing as far as seeking out community stakeholders for this committee of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. So you will hear from the team. We'll be talking a little bit about the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council itself. We'll give an overview of the Racial and Ethnic Equity Committee, and then talk more in a little bit more depth about the application and selection process, and then leave some space for Q&A. But I should say at the top of the meeting as well, please, please, please use the chat function. I know we probably are all tired of virtual meetings, but the Q&A function is a little bit more complicated than what anyone wants to do at 5:30 p.m. on a Monday. So chat would be best. But to kick us off, the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, again, we are seeking community stakeholders for 13 vacancies. If you are familiar with Harris County and some of its previous work around criminal justice, you may have heard about the previous iteration of this committee. It was the Racial and Ethnic Disparities Committee. I should also just say the current title is a placeholder. That is, the name of the committee will be voted and determined by the future committee members. So something to keep in the back of your mind as to what this committee will be doing. Next slide, please. So what is the Racial and Ethnic Equity Committee? It is currently authorized to be a 17-member committee, 13 of which are community stakeholders, and 4 from Harris County agencies, so the Justice Administration Department, the Houston Police Department, which is not a Harris County agency, but a government agency nonetheless, the Sheriff's Office, and Juvenile Probation Department. So those are the 4 government entities that will have seats on the committee, but the remaining will be community stakeholders. The committee itself, as you can tell by its title, will be heavily steeped in equity and really discussing how we have an equitable criminal justice system, which is something that I would hope would be a passion of any member of that committee, but clearly is a very hot button issue for lots of people around our nation today. And exactly how the committee will do that, I mean, it will work to facilitate these community-driven solutions through education, data transparency, development of interventions, and even policy and best practice. Next slide, please. So at the highest of high levels, I'll talk about what the committee will do. What's the time commitment? What can you expect? So we have estimated that the committee itself will meet roughly around 8 hours per month and possibly monthly. And the 8 hours could be spent with the committee as a whole. So for a committee meeting, it could also be spent doing work outside of the fuller committee. So in work groups and maybe doing individual work as well. This is just a rough estimate just based on what we've seen with our other counterparts across the nation. So it's not a hard number, but that's something that you could possibly expect. We will be working with the W. Haywood Burns Institute. They currently provide technical assistance to Harris County around equity. And for the committee, what that may look like, and of course the committee will make final determination on all of these things, but it could look like equity training, providing the committee with tools and talking points that can help them shape policy recommendations to the larger Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, et cetera. But we will have some really stellar support. They currently support all of the Safety and Justice Challenge sites. And I'll address the Safety and Justice Challenge probably in the Q&A if there are more questions, but they address different they support different jurisdictions across the nation that are working to have equitable criminal justice systems. And then last but definitely not least, the committee can expect to provide some oversight and lots of guidance to the Justice Administration Department's community engagement efforts. Right now, you may be familiar with the previous press release about JAD seeking proposals for a community engagement grant. So investing funding into community-based organizations. We fully anticipate that in the future, this committee will not only be a thought partner in future grant making, but really navigating and providing feedback on performance of grantees and other community engagement efforts. So now I will turn it over to my colleague, Karen, and she will carry us through the rest of the presentation into the Q&A period.
Advance the slide, please. So who should apply? We are looking for community stakeholders who are residents of Harris County, or if you are not a resident of Harris County, we're looking for you to have had significant experience or service working with the criminal justice system. And that service should have some demonstrable impact, should have made some demonstrable impact to the system. And so again, we are looking for residents of Harris County, but not necessarily, you don't have to necessarily be a resident. You have to have had some service or experience in working with the criminal justice system in Harris County. We also are looking for individuals with lived experience, someone who has been justice involved or formerly incarcerated, or if you have family members who've been impacted by the criminal justice system, we're looking for those individuals as well. Service providers working with justice involved individuals. So if you've worked with, family services or any of the community-based organizations that provide service to justice involved individuals, we'd like you to apply as well. Criminal justice advocates and advocacy groups, and then individuals that are familiar with the criminal justice system processes. You know that Harris County is the biggest county in the state, and so there's a lot of things that our community don't understand, and so we're looking for you guys for members to be able to speak knowledgeably about the criminal justice system here in Harris County. Next slide, please. How do you apply? So you can apply, you can go to the link that's provided here, and we are accepting both written and video applications. For the video applications, you'll simply place your URL in the actual document and send it, and we will review it there. The application period started on February 1st and will go through Friday, February 19th. Next slide, please. The selection process. So again, as I stated, the application closes on February 19th. The selection committee will review the applications. And just so you know, the selection committee is comprised of current CJCC members, as well as JAD staff. We'll review the applications and then select who we want to interview. We expect those interviews, we plan for those interviews to happen the last week of this month. After that, we will make recommendations. The committee will make recommendations to the CJCC, and those recommendations will be made public March 11th at the next CJCC meeting. Next slide. So now's the time for you guys to ask us any questions that you may have in regards to the selection process, or if you want deeper responses to some of the things that some of the information Brandy provided earlier. This is your time. Just remember to make sure that you use the chat feature and make sure that you choose the send to all panelists option. And just a reminder that this video will be recorded, so you can access this later on, as well as if you think of any other questions after this WebEx, you can certainly email your questions directly to me, and I'll make sure that you get a response in a timely manner.
So we've already received a question, and I do want to take the liberty to answer. So what is the Safety and Justice Challenge? The Safety and Justice Challenge is really a grant opportunity that was, I'm sorry, 1 second. I want to make sure that I can pull the link for you all. The opportunity was promoted by the MacArthur Foundation, and MacArthur back in 2017 solicited jurisdictions that were interested in working with them and other national experts such as the W. Haywood Burns Institute, Justice Management Institute, to really target their jail population and racial and ethnic disparities within the jails. So in 2017, Harris County applied for that challenge and was awarded. So we have been a first round grantee site since that time. And it is a network of, again, jurisdictions. So New Orleans, Philadelphia, Allegheny County. I am dropping the link to the website in the chat as well, so that you all, if you choose to and want to find out more, you can go to the link and see all about the website, the challenge, and all the other jurisdictions that participate. But essentially, it's some added funding and support to the county that is really targeted towards jail population and addressing racial and ethnic disparities. Let's see, we did get another question about, go ahead.
I'll respond to Mr. Lewis. We did get your application, and they're fine. You don't need to resubmit them. Thank you.
Also, the recording, oh, go ahead, Karen.
Okay. Yes, I did respond in the chat that the recording will be available on the website. The same website that you use to access the application. That's the link that you'll use that the recording should be there. And again, if you have any questions specifically, please don't hesitate to email me. And I will include my email just in case you don't have it in the chat area.
So to help provide some additional context, because sometimes folks can be shy around Q&A period, I wanted to provide some common questions that I thought might come up. So what do our counterparts or like other committees that are similar to the Racial and Ethnic Equity Committee, like what are they doing in their respective jurisdictions? So you can get an idea of what folks might propose here. So some communities have really taken a policy focus with their committees, proposing legislation and also advocating for legislation and utilizing passage as a milestone. So that could be something that the committee may dive into here. I spoke briefly about the Justice Administration Department already participating in some direct funding to community-based organizations. We've seen some other jurisdictions leverage their committee to not just deploy funding, but solicit funding, and then subsequently re-grant it out to some community-based orgs. So that is also something that may be of interest. Really, the direction is mostly determined by the stakeholders that sit on the committee. Another common question that we've heard is, so it's a committee of the CJCC or the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and what does that mean? Essentially, this committee will have a standing agenda item for the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council and can propose policy shifts and programmatic shifts to it. So we anticipate it being a very close relationship. I'm seeing another question around term limits. The committee itself has a 1-year term limit, so the commitment would be for a year. And how long? So the Safety and Justice Challenge project, I could be interpreting this wrong, but I'll say we have been a part of the challenge since its inception in 2017. And we will likely be closing out our work with them in 2 more years. So the work of the committee definitely will last longer than the Safety and Justice Challenge, but I interpreted project to mean the challenge. If I'm wrong, please feel free to.
Brandy, there's a question, and I'm not sure if you responded to this one. Is there a mandate to follow the committee's recommendations?
So the committee can provide recommendations to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. The Criminal Justice Coordinating Council also has to vote on anything that gets proposed. So as far as a mandate, all of the stakeholders around the CJCC are leaders in the criminal justice space. I would anticipate if there is a vote in confidence of a particular initiative, the expectation is that the agency that would be implementing or partnering is, if they are voting in favor of that, then you would have the support of the leadership of that particular department or agency. So I can't necessarily say that there's a concrete mandate, but the expectation is that the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council as a whole, if it votes on something and chooses to pursue it, then it does have the strength of that majority vote. And typically it will pass with the support of the department. If something's passing and the department doesn't support it, that may be a bit of a challenge, but I'm not sure I've seen that in more recent votes of the committee.
Another question, is there a voting system or level of hierarchy that will be used in the committee?
So actually, that's a really great question. The new structure of the committee itself, the Racial and Ethnic Equity Committee, that structure was determined to really dismantle some of the inherent power struggles that we've seen between community and government in the past. So folks coming in and like there's only one community member per a ton of representatives from government. So with the committee now being a majority community-led committee, it's a one vote, one person system. And what is obvious and what we are communicating by its structure is that in order for the committee to really support anything, it has to be community-led. So if there is a hierarchy, it's really around our value that we lead this work with the community.
Okay, so you started down that path. The next question is, what type of outcomes or initiatives has the previous version of this committee been able to put in place?
Oh, good question. So the previous iteration of this committee, they really laid a lot of great foundation for us to kind of jump off from. Another piece of work, I think we've shared this on the website. If not, we can make sure it gets posted. The committee itself engaged the W. Haywood Burns Institute to do some initial analysis on disparities that exist within our criminal justice system at like two particular points in the system. They call them decision points, but essentially it's at like a specific action point. So one of those, just as an example, is pretrial jail. And so the committee worked with the Burns Institute to deliver that initial analysis, which really pushed the county down a path of wanting to complete a fuller analysis with a third-party evaluator. So we're actually in that process now. The other piece is that the previous committee, one of their flagship events was a symposium where they brought together lots of criminal justice stakeholders, both academic and government stakeholders, to present at this symposium. And it was held, I believe, on TSU's campus to really like engage the community and just as a cursory step. So there were lots of learnings from that we'll be happy to share with the committee and build upon. Granted, I mean, symposiums are a bit difficult these days, but I'm sure the committee will want to take up some community empowerment and community education series as well that could potentially be facilitated. But those are just nuggets of things that I know. I should say I was not physically with Harris County at that time, but those were things that were highlighted for me, and based on my conversation with colleagues, really made an impact.
That seems to be all of the questions that have been brought forward. I just want to make sure if anyone has any additional questions or concerns or comment, please feel free. This is your time.
I should say one last thing just to make sure if it comes up in the in another, like in the future, because of the current circumstances, at this time, you could expect that meetings will be virtual. As far as timing of meetings, in like how they'll be scheduled, that's something that will be done democratically by the committee itself. So folks will need to vote on windows of time that work best for them to meet, and we'll facilitate that way.
Advance to the last slide, please. All right, so we thank you for attending this WebEx. Again, this is recorded and will be available on the website. Just wanted to remind you again, if you have any additional questions or concerns, you can send those directly to me, and my email is provided here. And if that be all, I think we thank you and look forward to talking to each of you later on.
I do. Before we leave, I'm not avoiding folks. I can provide my email in the chat. We just wanted to be certain that all matters related to this application process are funneled through Ms. Karen Evans. I definitely wouldn't want anyone to get lost in my inbox because this is extremely important, and we want to take the utmost care in responding to you all. But thank you so much for joining us.
Have a great evening, all.